Greetings! In today's video, I will take you through this sketchbook that I recently finished. Well, recently. I finished it in February, so time to take a look through and see what it holds. This is one of the Michael Soloviev sketchbooks. I really like them. There's not a whole lot of info about what brand of paper is in there. All it says is that it's a 100% cotton cold press paper, 300 GSM, and there's 48 pages. Always covered with stickers. These pages, the beginning and the end, they're always a bit messy. I like to stick all kinds of things in there. Here I have paint notes. I also have a bunch of weird things like fruit stickers, stamps, a little doodle, all kinds of weird things. Then the next page, the very first page of watercolor paper, I like to make a bit of a title page. So this one says just new sketchbook. I did it with the cake of rewettable Chinese ink. It's a fun tool to use, but it tends to rub off a little, so that's a bit annoying. First spread is when I did the Paul Rubens floral set review. So this is the swatches and the labels, and I did two little drawings to test it out. I was inspired by the fact that it's a floral set, so I did things themed around flowers. Our next spread features the colors from Mary's Masters watercolor set. This one had 24 colors in it. Most of the sets and swatches and paints you'll see me feature in this book are sets that you will possibly have seen in reviews before. So yeah, these again were a lot of fun to use. They behaved really well and I'm quite happy with the results. Our next spread, it is not a particular review of anything. I did these because I want to put together a small booklet featuring this particular cat night. So I did a few illustrations for that, and this I painted to be the cover. I forgot to write down what paints I use for these, so I apologize. So moving on, we got more of these. I have a bunch of little illustrations to do some little spot illustrations throughout the pages. And then this one, I can see that this one rubbed off a little bit over there. So perhaps I should put some sort of protective sheet in here. Then we have the two paintings I did testing out the Funto watercolor set. It was a little travel kit that was really nicely thought out, but had a few issues. Notably, the paints are a bit weak and perhaps a little too much of a lower grade than I would have wanted. You could still do something with them, but they get to the point where they kind of limit what you can do and what you cannot do. So it's a bit frustrating to use. And then I did this little... I did this one after watching the first season of Bridgerton, I think, and I wanted to doodle some Bridgerton cats or something. I don't know. I didn't keep up with the show. I have another little spread here. This is when I revisited my Shinhan PwC professional watercolors, the ones that I have, which is those swatches up there. Again, they're beautiful paints. They work really well. I don't have any issue, complaint, anything special to note about these. And then this spread, this is the one where these pigments relate to this one. This is my handmade paints. I got a little palette from Temu and it had those little half sphere wells, and I had some little half sphere paints that I made, and I decided to combine them and then to fill out the rest of the wells with other handmade paints that I had done. But I kind of forgot to label them at the moment of making this, so I still have the info, but I'm not entirely sure which one is which at this point. I have a bit of an idea, but not 100% sure. But yeah, so I painted these two with the handmade colors. Considering I made these a while ago, they held on well. Really like the Potter's Pink and all the greens. And then I did a spread featuring some Cutman paints. I don't know why I keep going back to Cutman. I don't particularly enjoy them, but it's like this unknown puzzle that keeps coming back to me all the time. I don't know, but this was a fun set to use. It's a bit silly that it has basically twice the same blue in there. They're not the only brand that does that, but every single time I see it, I'm always a bit disappointed, truly. And then this is another little painting that I did with a bunch of muted Holbein paints that I put in a palette just for fun. And then we have more Cutman paints. This time it's vintage Cutmans. These were in a set. I think all those labels, they're from the set with these. And I don't know what I did, but there's only 11 colors. And then I have more vintage Cutmans, but these are from tubes, and they're a weird assortment of hand-me-down paints and paints that I found here and there, and, you know, just random things. I think this turned out quite well. I feel like with Cutman, the paints are serviceable. They're a bit frustrating, but you can do things with them. Then I have my spread with the, well, actually more Cutman paints, but this was the upgrade number 53, which featured 8 Cutman paints, a bit of white gouache, and a brush, I think. It took me some time to figure out what to do with this assortment of colors. There was so many blues in there, but I was thinking, and I was like, oh, I could do some sort of space background with all the blues and then use the rest of the colors to paint the subject. And that's also what I did on this one. Oh yeah, it came with paper too. That's right. This is one of the sheet of papers that came with the upgrade box. Here, that's not paint that transferred, it's their little upgrade label that transferred. Oh well. Quite happy with this one. I think the effect is really interesting. I think the only supply within this box that was a bit lackluster was the white gouache, because it's not that opaque and it's quite streaky. So it did fine for the splatters, but it was a bit underwhelming for highlights. This one I wrote what I did it with, so good job me. This one was painted with the Light Wish 24 half-pan set. There's a bit of a mistake in this drawing. Like I set it up so that the cat should be looking down the hole, but then I drew the hole kind of a bit too high up. It doesn't quite work, but it's done. The next one is this spread where I tested out the Light Wish set of 128 colors. This one is definitely more of a student range of paints in the sense that you get all sorts of paints that are fun to use, but that I wouldn't say are professional. Yeah, you would get a lot of neon colors, a lot of shimmery colors. So you can have a lot of fun with these, but they're not the most well-behaved of paints. Then we have another little spread featuring Arteza paints. These, if I remember right, they're the half pans that a friend of the channel sent me a long time ago. And then COVID happened and I never really got around to testing these out, but I had the perfect palette to put them in and I thought it was time. So I took them out, unwrapped them, swatched them, did 2 little paintings with them. Yeah, so there's 36 colors. So there's some here, but also some here. And I did these 2 little paintings with them. Then I did these 2 because I wanted to use some Cinelli paints, so no review for these per se, just me messing around with Cinelli paints. And I have these. Okay, so this one I painted with the Roman Schmal Essentials palette. I really like the depth of colors that I was able to get, like this super dark green, loving it. I didn't do the mist like I would have wanted to do it, but it still turned out okay. On this page, I have another little painting done with the Supervision 48 tube set. So the fun for this one was really to try and get that glow from the candles, and it worked out somewhat well over here, and then here I had a bit of a hardline effect that happened, but yep, that's the medium. That's watercolor for you guys. And then more of the Essentials by Roman Schmal, which is a lovely palette. I love it. I did a bunch of tests and swatches on this, so I have 3 color wheels that I did from colors within this palette. And I also painted this one. So the other painting you saw made with this palette was more muted. So I wanted to do something more muted and do something more colorful with the same palette. And the colorful illustration turned out to be this one with the cats, the fish cellar. And yeah, I mean, I sound like a broken record by now, but love these paints. They are amazing. Our next spread features the Kansai Tambi granulating colors. So you have the granulating colors on this side in big swatches because I wanted to have the space to really get the effect going. And from what I can see, these seem to be a very simple basic principle of having a granulating neon pigment mixed with a smooth dye probably, so that you get an undertone that's one color and then a granulation that's a separate color. You have kind of a more reddish pink here in the granulation, a more pink here, orange orange and then the pink. But then these two blue in terms of background dye seem to be really similar, this green, and then these two also seem to be really similar. So all in all, really interesting effect, but the color availability is a bit limited. It was interesting to try and paint something with only these colors, and this is what I came up with. So yeah. And then this one, this was done with the set of 96 colors from Meeden, a surprisingly fun set and a beautiful palette. I really enjoyed painting with these, and to me they are the perfect level of being a more affordable, a more accessible grade of paint with some special effect paints in there, all that, but also that delivers a good result. You can paint with these and not be frustrated. Of course, it will depend on what you like to paint, but from my style of illustration, these worked out really well. On the next page, I have this little knight that I did following a prompt on Blue Sky. It was basically about having a character in a green armor with a bit of a grotesque helmet. It kind of looks like it's the cat face, but it's meant to be a helmet. Anyway, I tried. Then we have two separate drawings. So for this one, I revisited the Sennelier Aqua Mini set, which is possibly my favorite set from Sennelier. It has many of my favorite colors in it, notably the French Vermilion, the Cinereus Blue that I just love. And also, I don't know why, but I'm always coming back to their phthalo green light, even if it's a color that I find really difficult to use in paintings. There's something about its glow on paper that always brings me back to it. The only possibly lackluster color in this selection of 8 is the Burnt Umber. I would have loved if it was a bit more strong, but Sennelier is not known for its strong earth colors, so that's not exactly a surprise. And I did this little painting. I felt like this is the perfect fall-themed palette for North America. With the colors you can mix from these, you can paint any kind of forest in the fall. That's what I did. And on the other side, I have a page where I painted with a small wooden palette in which I put 8 Schminke colors. I had these on hand, so these are the colors that I put in there, and this is what I painted with them. Pretty straightforward. And in this one, again, it was more about testing out a small palette in which I put paints. And yeah, basically I had this mini red palette that could hold 24 colors. I had a separate palette that had 24 dots of Holbein in it, and I just transferred the dots to the new palette. They're a bit of an odd selection of colors. They're not the most versatile, but I had a lot of fun painting this little car anyway. So next page, same idea again. It was more about testing out a palette than really testing out paints. If I remember right, I think these are also Holbein colors. Yeah, that would track with the color names, but I don't really remember the context of these colors that I probably set in a palette ages ago and then transferred to a new palette. But anyway, fun little painting. Color wheel was really interesting to do because you can get some beautiful jewel tone colors from mixing this specific magenta, the deep yellow, and then I used the Prussian blue. So things. This one is a bit more recent. You've probably seen my review of this cute little palette from Loomer. It's a really nice little portable palette that has 9 colors in it. And the 9 colors that the palette comes with are super interesting. So I had a lot of fun painting this, and also did the mixing chart here, which showcased some really beautiful mixes and really interesting things going on here. And then I have this one that I did as a test. This one was not done for a review. It was a way for me to test out what if I did a painting that I do a sketch, then I do a black and white wash layer over my sketch, and then I do colors on top of the black and white. And this is what I ended up with. This one was a different test of sorts. Both of these, this one and this one, have Roman Schmal paints. For this one, I used a black Prismacolor pencil for some of the inking or the line work of my sketch. And then for this one, it's just inked regularly. I was trying something. I haven't found a solution to my art crisis yet. Still ongoing, but this is me testing out things. This is the swatches of the mixing palette that I reviewed recently. Now, I painted this one with this palette, but I wasn't too happy with this drawing. And then the very last page of this sketchbook is this little illustration that I painted with my Agallo paints. I'm not entirely happy with the drawing itself, but did I mention the art crisis? Oh, and then the last double page is just an assault on everyone's senses with way too much weird neon stickers. So I'm gonna hide that. But yeah, that's the sketchbook. It is a bit buckled, it is a bit thick because of everything that I add in there. Yeah, but also it's finished and I tested out a bunch of stuff in there. I learned a few things and I got started on a new one right away because that's always how this goes. Glad to add another finished book to the pile, but also a bit annoyed that I ended up in a bit of an art slump that is still ongoing at the end of this one. Hopefully I take myself out of it soon, but for now that's where I'm at. So thank you so much for watching this video. I know this is not the most informative or insightful video or whatever, but it's always interesting to go through a finished sketchbook in my opinion, and it's also a good way for me to archive the content of this book by making a video about it. Again, thanks for watching. See you all in the next one. Bye bye.